Some of these takes are cringe at best. How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about Fox Sports 1 anchor, analyst, whatever you may want to call him, Emmanuel Acho, giving his 2 cents about affirmative action and why it was needed and why removing it was a bad thing. Now, I came across this video on my social medias, on Twitter, and when I started to watch it, I'm like, well, wait a minute. What kind of video was this? It was a little bit different. I'm like, okay, is it not safe for work? What's going on? Why is this particular video and what he was doing in the video related to affirmative action? Now, before I go any further, let's go ahead and watch said video. It is safe for work, so don't be afraid. And if you want to see it in full for some reason without my commentary, links, as always, will be in the description box. But without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
The oppressor has unfortunately won again. In case you missed it, Supreme Court, they overturned affirmative action. What does that mean? That means that colleges can no longer allow race or gender to play a role in admittance.
Okay, now you may be asking yourself, hey, ABL, why is he getting undressed? Your guess is as good as mine. I don't know why he's doing this right now. I don't really get it. I don't understand how that adds to the video, but he is doing it. Let's back up a little bit to catch it from the top, just so we're on the same page. I'm not trying to rewind this guy disrobing.
The oppressor has unfortunately won again. In case you missed it, Supreme Court, they overturned affirmative action. What does that mean? That means that colleges can no longer allow race or gender to play a role in admittance. Here is why that is a pivotal mistake. Well, number one, race has always played a factor in determining college admittance. What do I mean? College admittance is primarily based upon standardized testing. Well, standardized testing isn't actually a metric of intelligence. Standardized testing is a metric of resources. It's a metric of what caliber of education did you receive. Well,
Can we pause right there? Standardized testing has its flaws. It's not perfect, but for the most part, it's accurate when it comes to determining where you are, whether your IQ level, your level of intelligence, your level of education before you get to college. It's a pretty accurate determining factor. Is it perfect? Is it 100% flawless? Obviously not. But let's just not cast it away as irrelevant. It is very relevant.
Education is based upon the public school system or private school system that you went to, primarily public school system. A public school system is based upon the resources of that public neighborhood. That public neighborhood is based upon redlining, and redlining has been based upon racism.
Now, redlining, and please pardon the freeze frames. I'm not trying to do this, but redlining, really that was an early form of a credit score. That's really what that was. That would determine who would be eligible for certain loans or whatnot. That's what that was. And we're now in the year 2023. Those days are behind us. And the whole factor about money playing into your education is really kind of silly, because how much does it take to teach 1 + 1 is 2? How much money do you need to teach somebody how to read? Baltimore public schools get the third most money per pupil in the nation. Baltimore public schools, the third most money per pupil in the nation. Yet you got kids graduating from Baltimore that cannot read. So at a certain point, we got to figure out something else.
Okay, let me give it to you in the inverse. If racism dictated redlining, who could live in what neighborhoods? Probably put the black people and the brown people over here. And redlining dictates who lives in a neighborhood. Who lives in a neighborhood dictates the resources of that school. And the resources of that school dictate how much help you can get for a standardized test. And a standardized test now dictates who gets into a university. Well, then racism was always in who gets into and who cannot get into universities. So affirmative action was simply going to undermine the negative racism that started the college admissions process in the first place. Now, the last thing I'll leave you with is this, and this is the most ironic crime of them all. Legacy admittance is still a thing, which simply says if your parents went to this institution, well, colleges will factor that in to whether or not you can get into an institution. But guess who's more likely to have parents at an institution? White people. Because white people were more likely to get into colleges when it was unlawful for black people to be granted admittance. I'll leave y'all to think about that.
Okay, so that's the thing right there. That's your man Emmanuel Acho. Like I said, he is a Fox Sports 1 analyst, anchor, host, whatever the appropriate title is. That was cringe for a few reasons because first, matter of fact, I'm gonna come back so you can see me clearly. That was cringe for a few reasons. First of all, the whole thing about legacy admissions, I mean, that's part of it, but that's not really the main thing. You still need to be qualified to get into a particular school to get there. You can't just say, oh, okay, I'm legacy, I could just get in. You know, I can't read it all, but I'm going to get in. And the thing is, it doesn't help you if you get into a college where you shouldn't really be there. If you have very low scores, lower than everybody else that's there, and the only reason why you're there is because you're Black or Hispanic, it's not really going to help you because what's going to happen is you're going to perform the worst out of everybody in the class. You're going to be in the bottom 25% of the class. So how was that helping you? Rather than going to a very rigorous program where you're mismatched, there's a book about that. Maybe I'll link to it in the box. Rather than going to a program where you're academically mismatched, go to a place that's still a good school, but fits you better. That will help you out better. Wouldn't that make more sense? I mean, I don't understand the need, the absolute, the necessity to go to one of these really strenuous programs when you're not suited to go there. Now, I have another video for you guys. This is from a man by the name of Kenny Xu. He's a board member, Students for Fair Admissions. He's an Asian guy, and he's on the news talking about the very same issue. And you're going to hear things from his perspective. And I think what he said makes a lot more sense than the disrobing Emmanuel Acho from Fox Sports 1. But without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it. Let's get some sound here. That might help out.
So, I mean, colleges, obviously, they care about grades and SAT scores, but they also are filling universities of people, human beings who have other factors that they bring to the table. Why is it not okay for them to consider those things?
We're moving the goalposts. Like, okay, the main thing about going to a university should be, are you capable academically of following the program, of graduating, of do you fit in this particular institution? That should be the main thing. But now let's talk about other things aside from your academic ability. That really shouldn't be what's going on here. Let's keep on going.
I'm saying if you're going to consider those things, you should consider them without respect to race.
Sure.
So as you know, a lot of Asian Americans.
I think that's exactly right. But socioeconomic status doesn't. If you take race out of it, let's call it socioeconomic status, where whether or not they grew up wealthy or poor, is that not something that colleges might have an interest in considering?
The reason why you shouldn't consider that is because you should consider the success of an applicant. Because of affirmative action, Black Americans graduate from law school at the bottom 25% of their classes, largely speaking. And we don't want that. We want Black students to succeed. We want every student to succeed, low-income students to succeed. But you have to put them in scenarios, in places where they're likely to succeed. And lowering your standard to admit somebody of a socioeconomic status or race would not help them do that. In fact, it would harm their graduation rate and excellence.
Well, as the case also points out, the standard isn't necessarily lowered because students are all admitted.
The standard is lowered, 100% lowered. That is a fact. The SAT scores, all these things are lowered. Your GPA, SAT scores, all that's lowered for Black and Hispanic to get them into a school to make it look more quote unquote diverse at the expense of Asians.
The question is whether race can be an added consideration, a tipping point in some of these cases.
The standard is lowered. The standard is lowered. As the student for merit admissions data shows, an Asian has to score 273 points higher on the SAT to have the same chance of admission as a Black person. So the standard is lowered for Black Americans.
Kenny Xu, thank you for your perspective. We really appreciate you joining us today.
Very well said. Shout out to Kenny Xu. Shout out to him. And shout out to all my Asian brothers and sisters out there. Shout out to you guys. You guys deserve a fair chance at being able to get into a college. It shouldn't be based upon your skin color, ethnicity, where you come from, where your parents come from. It shouldn't be like that. It shouldn't be like that. And here's a thing right here. Let me see if I can put this on the screen for you guys right quick. But this is kind of what he was speaking about. Okay, this is what he was speaking about right here. Let's zoom in on it. Let's check it out. Now, I'm going to try to cite a source on this. Maybe I'll put it in the box. If Harvard admitted students only from the top 10% of its applicants, Asian share of admitted would rise from 24.9 to 51.7. White share was likely dropped to 37.6 to 35.5, which is like right in the same. They're not really going to change too much at all. So when someone like Emmanuel Acho says it's about the white people trying to get in all of that and the third, they're not really going to be that much affected. It's the Asians. It'll more than double. Now, the Hispanic share would plummet from 14.9 to 2.7, and the black share would vanish from 15.8 to 0.9. So your top 10% of applicants, these are going to be the best of the best the best and the brightest. Now, that should be who they select from, because it's an Ivy League, it's exclusive. It's not for everyone. It should be the top percentage of the applicants. And that should be the appropriate numbers. The white, that's pretty much is going to be the same. Black and Hispanic are going to drop. Asian is going to double. This is what I said before. If this whole thing goes through, well, it's going to go through. But after this whole thing really plays out and there's not any kind of funny business going on, you're going to have Harvard be mostly white and Asian. And that's fine. That's totally fine, because these are the best students. If we want to see that change, rather than having racist policies on the books to keep Asians out, to put more black and Hispanics in, maybe black and Hispanics should just tighten up. It's not too much more to it. But as I close, I want to say this. Shout out to Emmanuel Acho for that little striptease thing in the beginning. I don't know really where you were going with that, but I was trying to ignore all that extra stuff in the background and focus on what you were saying. And shout out to Kenny Shu for keeping it all the way real and telling what's going on without racism, without anger, without vitriol. It's like, look, this is what it is. And it's just as simple as that. Nothing against anybody else of any other race, but it's unfair to be racist toward anyone. But I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? What do you think about the whole thing going on here with the couple videos you saw? How you think? What do you feel about affirmative action in general? What's your viewpoint on this whole situation? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. You guys know where I'm at. It's racist to be racist against people. And I think that the practice of racism in college admissions and other things like the workplace, etc., should be eliminated. That's just my humble opinion. Whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.